Matt, you've had some pretty impressive jobs this year so far. I got to say, you've done a good job of pivoting, and I'm happy that you're finally doing some work for free instead of just going for the places that pay out the big bucks. You volunteered to be on the Game Awards show committee, and I hear you're responsible for Astrobot being Game of the Year. So I just want to congratulate you on your new position there, and I wish you many more Game Award shows in the future.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that outcome. Actually, I wanted Wukong to win, but that's fair. Thank you, though.
You and every other player on the planet, apparently, because it won the Player Choice Award.
I think there was a lot of fandom around Astrobot, but it is a PlayStation exclusive, so not as many people played it.
I didn't play it. I heard it was like around 4 hours worth of gameplay, which is interesting.
4 hours?
Did you play it?
Made like 14.
Oh, okay. Did you play it?
No, I've not played it, but I know it's way more than 4 hours.
Okay. I just read online because I hadn't played it. So I was like, what's the deal with Astrobot? I wanted to know.
That sounds like some rage bait right there.
Probably.
4 hours Game of the Year?
I read it on the internet, Matt, so it must be true.
It must be true then. Yeah. No one would ever lie on the internet, right? Especially people for their intros to their podcast about certain activities. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm pumping up how impressive your resumes are, Matt. You've done a lot of stuff.
At this point is pretty impressive. Over this last year, I've apparently done everything under the sun and failed at everything under the sun.
Yeah. Do you think the Game Awards are basically like the Academy Awards now, which is like, it's sort of a meritocracy, but mostly it's bought and paid for behind the scenes?
I don't think it's paid for, no. Okay. I know that there's a lot of people that were claiming that it was paid for.
Sure.
But I have my complaints with the Game Awards, but the winners, no. I didn't really have any issues with that. Though, I did think maybe I'm being paid by them as an employee, according to you.
This is what somebody on the board would say for sure.
I thought straight up this was the best Game Awards that they've done.
Yeah.
Like it was smooth. It flowed well. Good reveals. They gave people the time to actually thank people and didn't just like shoo them off to the side.
Yeah.
They actually talked about the issues that the gaming industry and didn't just brush it under the rug. And it was just really well done. It went by quickly, and I thought they did great.
Yeah, and I hope it's not like that thing where people complained last year because they didn't give the devs any time to like say anything.
Shoot them off. Yeah.
They're like, thanks for making the greatest game we've ever played. Here's 20 seconds to say something. And they're just like, and then they're like, all right, get off the stage. So we can play a trailer that somebody paid us a lot of money to put up here or something.
A lot of money.
Yeah. I agree with you, by the way. I think the Game Awards did a much better job this time around, and I hope they can keep that up going forward and not just respond to criticism. So that would be cool. The amount of reveals and trailers they showed was huge. There was like an hour's worth of trailers. Like it was so many trailers.
Some bangers too.
Yeah. What was your highlights, man?
The Elden Ring and Witcher reveal.
I had a feeling. I wanted to actually ask you about Elden Ring because I haven't played it. I've seen plenty of gameplay on it, and I know what kind of game it is. But the new Elden Ring, I forgot what it's called. Elden Ring something or other.
Night Rain, I think.
Night Rain. There we go. So it's like a roguelite, but like a 2-player co-op roguelite, which sounds like a really fun formula. Like it sounds solid.
I think it's going to be more than just 2 players, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe it's 2 other players. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think 3 total.
Okay. Yeah.
Including yourself.
That sounds fun. Like, it sounds like a cool concept, and it seems like they're just kind of building off of what they built with Elden Ring in terms of, like, their engine tech and the visuals and stuff look kind of same.
Yeah, so from the description, it seems like it's going to be where kind of like a battle royale, and you might be thinking, a battle royale? So you'll have, like, a map that will be randomized, and with different bosses and different enemies around, and then the zone will shrink as like the game progresses, and until you get to the very end, and then you have to fight like the big bad Night Rain character or whatever, and it's your job to take out bosses along the way. However you want to explore this procedurally generated, not to say completely procedurally generated, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think kind of randomize the spawns and stuff like that.
Randomize it, exactly. And then it's kind of like a boss fighting rush mode kind of game. That's
Yeah.
sort of what the vibe that I was getting from the description.
So it's like probably
And
the more bosses you kill, the stronger you can get.
would be my guess. Yeah. It's going to be different for sure, because Elden Ring isn't really it's not a roguelike, obviously. So
or a co-op, really. It sort of has those elements, but you can totally play it without co-op at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is the clear use of previous game assets. There's a moment in there where the Nameless King just shows up, and the Nameless King is the thing on the dragon, the dude on the dragon.
Yeah.
And he's from Dark Souls 3, and you're like, so is this just going to be an accumulation of all of like the bosses that we've ever replayed in the Souls franchise?
Cool, to be honest.
It would be kind of cool. Exactly. Like they've got so many bosses, and if they update the assets to those bosses and then somehow make them for co-op.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm fascinated by is that there's going to be classes with different ultimates, which is not Souls-like. So that's going to be definitely different. When they were running around, they were also moving much faster than you would in like the original game. So that might just be
Souls, you know?
Well, it could just be the traversal, because like if you need to move around and you've only got a limited amount of time because the zone is moving in, right?
Yeah.
Then you want to be able to move quickly, because that's the whole point. So that just might be for like traversal, and then when you actually get into the gameplay or the battles, like it might slow back down. But yeah, I mean, it's From Software. I don't think this is Miyazaki's project, who's like the head of usually the franchise. I think it might be like a spin-off or a side project from the team, but I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's cool that I actually liked that they were reusing some of the bosses in it, because once an IP gets to a certain status and you're just like, we are the company that makes the Dark Souls style games, like that's who we are, and these are our famous titles and everybody knows them, and you're like, we got so much clout, we can like bring back the characters that people love now, and people not only are they not going to say that we're being lazy, but they're going to be happy about these characters returning.
I think if it was just old bosses and that was it, and it was okay. But as long as there's like plenty of new content there, I think people will be content.
Well, plus the boss isn't probably going to be copy and pasted. It's going to be like, here's this boss, but we've updated it with some stuff.
We might update its moveset a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. You know, it's like Star Wars. People aren't going to watch a Star Wars without a TIE fighter in it. You almost want that TIE fighter. And he's like, oh, Star Wars is so lazy. They keep throwing the TIE fighters and X-Wings into everything. Gosh, make a new spaceship. You want it, right? So
true.
I think it is kind of neat that they're at that status where they're just like, here's that boss that everyone likes. And you're like, I don't even care why he's here. It's just cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The fun thing too is that the Nameless King is like a secret boss, and that you could completely miss it in in Dark Souls 3 if you didn't know about it. And it's pretty secret too. Like you have to go and you have to basically become a dragon, and then sit by a rock, and then it teleports you to an entirely different zone. And so the fact that boss is so iconic is kind of ironic.
Trick.
Yeah, the old dragon rock. Yeah, exactly.
Classic fantasy right there. First turn into a dragon, then sit by the rock. Some fantasy is like, pull the sword from the stone or something like that. Not From Software games. Just turn into a dragon, obviously. Sit by the rock. Yeah.
Obviously.
So Witcher 4 did look cool. The trailer for it was dope.
It was sick as hell. The music too was fantastic. The soundtrack came out just exclusively for itself. I'm like, if they keep this up, this is gonna be a banger. So
rendered out in Unreal Engine 5, I believe. Showing all Unreal Engine. Which CD Projekt Red, man, they're just going to be on a roll for a while, I feel. Like, I know Cyberpunk kind of fumbled a little bit when it came out, but it's still a game that almost everybody on the planet played. And
I think now most people, I don't know if they've completely forgiven them, but they're like, yeah, you fixed it. So good job.
Yeah, and their DLC was incredible, and it's probably the best looking game that's ever been made. Like, it's just insanely good looking.
You can make it look incredible for sure, especially with mods.
Yeah, I mean, I would say by default it looks incredible, and then you start throwing mods on there with a 4090 and you're like, is this real life? What did they do? And then they're like, yeah, we're ditching this engine for UE5 for the next project. You're like, okay.
And there's got to be a reason for it. There has to be a reason why they're ditching it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of agreement with Epic on it, but I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit a couple podcasts ago, but basically when you have hundreds, probably thousands with CD Projekt Red, several thousand devs working for your company on different projects, at a certain point, it's going to be hard to attract developer talent if they have to learn an engine that cannot translate to any other company. So it becomes harder to get the talent, becomes harder to train the talent, and you have less available talent that is coming in with the skills that you already need. Because every single person you hire on is like, yeah, I can program shaders. And they're like, oh, in CD Projekt Red games? I don't know. You'll have to show me how to do that. So it makes a lot of sense from a lot of angles. We could definitely play the like, oh, Epic's paying the money, blah, blah, blah angle, which maybe they are. But I think somebody just crunched the numbers and we're like, this is how much money we save by just getting a new engine entirely.
Yeah. So love the trailer. Thought it was sick. People are a little confused as to how Ciri is now a Witcher, because in Witcher 3, kind of spoiler alert, she wasn't one. And she also had like superpowers, basically. She had like really wild, she's basically overpowered. There were moments in the game where you would literally switch to her and she's just like teleporting around everywhere. So it's like, so what happened to that? Why is she now a Witcher? And so there's a little bit of confusion and people are a little upset that it's just not a brand new story with new characters, which I kind of understand. But at the same time, I'm going to give CD Projekt Red the benefit of the doubt because they usually have pretty good writers and I'm sure they can figure out some justification. And at the end of the day, it is just a video game. And even if it's kind of a loose justification for people just to embrace more Witcher, I think it'll work out.
I mean, I'm not familiar with the books. Is that a narrative in the books? Have you read them?
I've not read the books, no. But so you have to go through a trial. And as a kid, and a lot of people die. A lot of kids die through that trial. And I don't know if any women can have gone in. I could be completely wrong on that one. And I think it's also, you have to be a child and it like changes you and you could die. So it could be her elder blood that allowed her to do it. Like I said, there's a lot of ways that they could probably figure, make it work. And maybe that's why she doesn't have powers, is that she went through the trial and it affected her in some way. Who knows?
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, it looks cool. Trailer looks dope. Then there were so many trailers. It's hard to like even wrap my head around how many trailers there are. I got excited about Turok just because it's like one of those old games that I saw. And like, oh, dinosaurs, like clapping my hands. But that looked weird and zany. It was like kind of like weird sci-fi Turok. I don't even remember what the original Turok was, but I guess it did have kind of weird zany weapons in it. So they're kind of...
Oh, it had very weird weapons.
Yeah.
Super weird weapons.
Yeah, and this one seems to be following in a similar path. Naughty Dog's intergalactic game probably got some of the most like attention for it. It looked wild. It was like, in the future, you've got a Porsche spaceship. Your Sony mixer putting a record in. People put up the parallels of clips from Akira, where they literally just lifted all these scenes from Akira to make the trailer in a tasteful way, in a cool way. And I'm like, that's pretty dope.
They had Adidas shoes, I think, too, at one point.
Yeah, Adidas shoes. It's just this wild thing. And then the chick shows up on a planet and turns on her laser sword and starts like fighting a robot. And you're like, I don't know what this game is, but it looks totally wild. Like,
it looks cool.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what Naughty Dog does with it.
It's Naughty Dog, so I have some faith in them.
Yeah. They've put out some pretty solid titles.
They put out one of my favorite games of all time, which is Last of Us. So I'm going to give them once again a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on, what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, and what I like about it is I have no idea what the game is. You're just like,
neither do I.
I don't know.
Clearly some sort of melee game, maybe.
Maybe it's going to be a card game for all we know, Matt.
Yeah.
It's all right. Play the laser sword card, and now you killed the robot. Yeah. There's been a lot of weird talk about it comparing the character to the Concord characters. I don't know if you've seen that online where...
I mean, I've seen people upset that she's bald and that she's not conventionally attractive. I've seen that.
Yeah. So there's been a huge amount of talk about it. I read an article from Forbes on this, like it's just interesting that they're chatting about it, but
okay.
It's sort of like the trend with doing unconventionally attractive or like non-conventionally attractive characters or relatively unattractive characters in games. And so they bring up the Concord comparisons because obviously we know that Concord fell on its face. And the characters were brought up a lot, which I don't think is the only reason that game failed.
I do think that if the Concord characters were like a smoke show, look at like Marvel Rivals, like everyone's like super hot. And I do think that plays a role, but that's not the reason why Concord like fell on its face. Like that's it's a part of the puzzle, but it's not the full story. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that people bring up the topic a lot, but it does seem to be a trend. And I noticed I was joking a while back when we were watching, there's like a fantasy show that Amazon was doing or somebody was doing. It was like the Ring of Time or something like that. Is that what it's called?
The Wheel of Time?
Wheel of Time. And I was joking. I was like, yeah, it's an all right show, but just none of the characters are hot in it. So I just can't get that into it.
Yeah. I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. A very profound statement that stuck with you. And I wonder if it's like kind of the same idea with games too, is you're just like, oh yeah, the characters are, it's a cool game, but the characters are just, I'm not super attracted to them. So it's like a movie. It's like the movie thing, right? You hire. I mean,
it absolutely does. Like because you're using the word, you find someone you're attracted to, you are, dare I say, attracted to it. So you're more likely to be interested in it because you are attracted to it. So there is something to it. Absolutely. But once again, it's I don't have to be attracted to every single character in my video games. Well, were people attracted to Astrobot? And it won Game of the Year.
True.
Right?
True.
I mean, it's cute, right? So it's
adorable.
Got the cute factor.
Yeah,
it's
adorable, if it was an
but
ugly
I'm not
little cartoon
hopefully
bot.
People aren't attracted to it.
Yeah. I mean, Astrobot, you could say aesthetically pleasing, right?
True.
If it was a non-aesthetically pleasing robot, maybe it wouldn't have won Game of the Year. We don't know.
Yeah. It's valid.
I think it's an interesting discussion. I think there is like a little bit of a pushback on the sexualizing of like lead roles and characters and stuff, because that's just been going on since the dawn of films and Hollywood and all that stuff, is we get hot movie stars to play the lead roles, and that's kind of become the standard with game development from Tomb Raider to whenever you put a hot character as the lead and then people play it. And it seems to be like a little bit of a pushback against it. And I wonder if it feels like there's a pushback against it because it's sort of like pushing against the policymakers, right? You're like, yeah, we're not going to do what the industry wants us to do, but maybe the industry is doing what the players want versus what the industry, you know what I mean? Where it's like the industry adapts to the market just as much as the market adapts to the industry.
I do. But like at the same time, for previous Call of Duties, like even like 10 years ago, did you find yourself attracted, or did you find like the main character sexy and handsome and like, sure, maybe a little bit for some people, but I don't think Call of Duty was the biggest selling franchise in history.
Do you even see your character in Call of Duty?
Not really. No, like you don't. So
yeah.
Like you see side characters, like you've got Price and all of them. And
right. And those characters are usually pretty attractive looking people. They're not, so it's not so much that it's a game that is like meant to lure you in with a bunch of hot dudes like fighting in the military. But they're not unattractive men. I should put it that way, right? They're like, they're decent looking guys, right?
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Fair.
They're not like Quasimodo on your, watching your flank over there.
Right. I guess, yeah, that's true. I guess I just didn't see the character, this new person. I don't even know her name. I didn't think she was
Jordan, I think.
I didn't think she was an abomination.
No.
She's just bald, and that's not really feminine by modern, beauty standards. So,
yep.
I don't know.
But it's the internet. That's what I don't know. I thought it'd be interesting to bring it up and just say, you know what, it's a company pushing back against the norm. How do you feel? How do people feel? We'd be curious to know what you guys think. Let us know in the comments. What other, oh man, so many trailers. I'm trying to like remember them all, but those were kind of like the top ones. Were there any other ones that stood out to you?
So the Wukong developer apparently was upset that they didn't win Game of the Year, and they came across pretty salty about it.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Well, they did win Player's Choice, I believe.
I think they also won Best Action Game too. I could look it up.
Yeah. I didn't see the reaction that they had to it or how they felt about it, but I can understand that because I haven't played either game, so it's hard for me to weigh in on whether or not Astrobot or Wukong is a better game than that. But there's a good argument for and against player choice, because player choice will almost always go with the most popular game, right? The game that the most people played and the most people watching the show care about. And that doesn't necessarily mean the best game. It just means the most popular game, you know?
Which is why they have their panel.
Yeah, The Sims would win all the time if that was the case, right? Because then you just have an insane number of Sims players voting on like, oh, it's clearly the best game is The Sims. So there's definitely a reason to have a critics panel and then a player's choice panel, I think, in that. So I can't really weigh in on whether or not I think they're right, but I think as a developer, you just kind of have to accept it or fight against it if you think it's bought and paid for, because a lot of those award shows do get bought and paid for. I
mean, it's always possible, right? I try not to be that cynical. At no point was I like, wow, Sony clearly paid for this. At no point was I like, this is a bought and paid for at all. Because when that game came out, tons of people were coming to me and be like, this is my game of the year. It's one of the coolest.
Astrobot?
Okay. For Astrobot. It's one of the best games I've ever played. It's it's refreshing. It's like it's world and their just game design is just really like fantastically done. So that also, but I find it a little bit humorous because when Wukong was doing so well and it released so well, tons of people were playing it. That I think the devs came out and said, if memory serves, like, oh, we're so grateful that you guys we did not expect this many people to be playing our game. Yeah. Yet now it's come out and he said that he wrote his Game of the Year speech 2 years ago. So it's like, did you have confidence or you didn't have confidence, sir?
He said that? Why would you say that?
That's because, this is where the article comes in that just came out recently, is that he's from this article, it sounded like he was there could be some translation issues, but he was pretty salty.
That's some next level arrogance to be like, I wrote my speech for the Game Awards thing 2 years prior because I just knew how good our game was, blah, blah, blah.
A part of me respects the confidence because it's like, hey, we made a game, right? What this is, this is fantastic. I like the confidence, but you don't ever tell anyone you wrote your speech 2 years before like the game even officially was nominated, right? Like, that's wild.
Also, I get it because it's an award show is always going to be subjective, right? No matter what. You've got a panel of people that are voting on it. And depending on the makeup of gamers on that panel, the favorite game is going to shift. If you got more people that like PlayStation exclusive games versus people that like really hardcore fighting games, like it's just going to be a different outcome. So I wouldn't put too much weight in it, but then again, the difference between, and this is why these shows get bought and paid for, and this is why something like the Academy Awards has been long known to have been a bought and paid for type event, is that if you win Best Picture of the Year, a lot of people rent your movie. A lot of people go out and buy that movie.
Absolutely.
There's millions and millions of dollars to be made by winning. And so obviously the award show gets corrupted very quickly, very easily. You pay the right people and stuff happens. Same with the Game Awards show, I would imagine. It's probably not quite as drastic because it doesn't quite have the same pull as, say, in a show like the Academy Awards does yet, I don't think. Maybe it does. I'd have to look at the numbers. But the amount of money to be made by being like, hey, we're the best game of the year. And people will go back for years and years and years to be like, well, what's the best game of 2020, 2021, 2022? Like, they're going to go back, look at those, and that's going to influence what games they buy. Even if Wukong is hidden, right? Because it's just Astrobot is the best game of that year. And it's like Wukong kind of gets snubbed for that. So
my question is, do you disagree with the other game of the years that were from the last couple of years?
I'm trying to remember. There was a few years where I remember the titles just being kind of like smaller things that I was like, really? That one over other stuff? But I don't think they've been too out of pocket. Like you can't go too far with that type of thing, right? Where you can't just like pick some random title that's not game of the year. Clearly, it has to be in the running, essentially. I'm not making an argument that Wukong should have won. I'm just making an argument that winning the Game Awards could be a pretty big deal financially for any developer.
I mean, I agree, but so Astrobot was this year. Last year was Baldur's Gate 3.
Sure.
The year before that was Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It Takes Two was before that, which I guess you could maybe, because that was like an indie title, a smaller game.
Yeah.
Then Last of Us 2, Sekiro, God of War, Legends of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, like all of these were
pretty big titles. Pretty good.
So like
you could argue I'm not arguing against it. Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm arguing against the idea that this was bought and paid for, because one year it was close, and just because it was close, that doesn't mean that it was bought and paid for by Sony.
I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying we should always consider that, because the second that everybody goes, the show's fine, don't worry guys, everything's on the up and up, and then the story comes out, the last 10 years it's all been paid for, here's the money trail or something like that, and then we all go, oh, how did we miss it? Right. I'm sort of that cynic, right? That's like, just consider that is a strong possibility.
It is absolutely a possibility. It is 100% a possibility. I just don't think the trend has illustrated that point.
Yeah.
Even like at all. Except for maybe this year, but like I thought it was a toss up between like every single one of them. It could have been Final Fantasy, it could have been Metaphor like pretty much like sweeped for all the other rewards. So I could have thought it was, going to be them. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the show is pretty good. I don't think there's as much controversy with that, generally speaking. It's usually just the smaller outlets talking about it, and then devs, of course, saying silly stuff online, which they always do. Like they have a terrible track record of. I mean, all devs say dumb stuff sometimes, and then it makes for fun headlines, and they're not really set up for, being politicians of their games, right? Getting out there and saying the right stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I can understand the effort that went into that game is impressive.
I mean, Wukong was my game of the year based off of those options, other than Helldivers 2, because Helldivers was actually my game of the year.
Well, and also,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And a lot of people wanted Helldivers to win, and it won the best, what was it, continued
some award
support game or something.
I think it did win that one, which is kind of funny because it had such a tumultuous patch cycle.
Sure, but it did do the thing where it was innovating the story through its updates. They
were telling the story
cool
through
ways.
The gameplay. Yep.
Speaking of which, that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Speaking of segues, Helldivers 2 New Faction, thoughts?
Awesome. So much fun. So Helldivers, what is so incredible about it is that they basically now give you 3 different fantasies. You've got your Starship Troopers with the bugs. Yeah. You've got Terminator with the bots. And now you have War of the Worlds with these giant walker.
They're like the Protoss,
structures.
Aren't they?
Protoss. Yeah, it is so cool. You shoot them in their little eye socket beam thing, and then they recoil all naturally, and it looks fantastic. And they got all these zombie things charging at you. It is dope. Yeah. It is so much fun. I really, really like it.
When did that come out? When did the update come out?
The Game Awards.
Okay.
The night of Game Awards, yeah.
The night of. They're like, when you're done watching this, hop on by and play some Helldivers. That's pretty dope.
Yep. Yeah. And they mix up the gameplay a bit where they have shields now. So everything revolves around. So they're literally like an alien faction that comes in with like ships, and they fly in, and sometimes they'll teleport down like Protoss. So just like that, or Star Trek. And you need to take out their shields on their ship, so you open up the door, or to like throw in a grenade. So it's a little bit different. It's basically the same mechanic of taking out the factories like you would, where you have to get your grenade into the little slit, the little hole. But in this, you have to blow or take out their shields before you can do that. And it's God, I love the game already. And it is literally just the most cinematic multiplayer game, almost most cinematic game ever made, just period.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
That's cool, man. It's how much, so what entails like a new faction coming in Helldivers? Like, is that like a ton of new maps as well? Like, do you only play new factions on new maps, or do they just throw them to different planets?
So there was only, I think, one planet available, which we were successfully able to repel them, and we won.
Yeah.
But so what's cool is that this is just like their scouting party, and there's going to be a larger army with more units introduced later at a later date.
Yeah.
And so the number of actual unique units here wasn't that large, and it felt a little bare bones in that respect, but I could still look past it because like they're going to add more, and it's a new faction, right? But yeah, so not a ton of new units yet. But what's also refreshing is that we're on new maps where you're in a city now with destructible buildings, and that kind of adds to that variety.
Yeah, it's such a cool way to launch content where you're like, yeah, we didn't quite have all the new assets done yet. So narratively, this is just their scouting party. And it's like, that's such a better way of doing it than being like, yeah, we're going to have new units coming in the next 2 to 3 months. So we'll add those when they're ready. They just weren't ready yet. And it's like, nah, they're weaving a story, man. Get into the story. I love it. Yeah.
Well, that could be part of it. I also just think it's just an easier way for them to piecemeal it and to drip feed content. It's like, yeah, this is the scouting party. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to add in maybe 2 more units or 1 more unit. And then the next week will be, they did the same thing when the game launched. The bugs didn't have like many flying units. Actually, they had no flying units. And then all of a sudden, flying units started showing up on the map, and people were freaking out like, what the hell is this? And it was really cool to experience that live, where they just all of a sudden, because of like, I don't know, radioactivity or something, just flying bugs are now a part of the enemy's like arsenal. It's really, really cool. That's
got to be so much fun as a dev to be like, oh man, these guys are going to flip when we hit this button here and it turns on flying bugs for everybody. They're going to lose it. That's got to be so darn cool. And then to experience it live, unbeknownst to you, you're just like, oh my God, new narrative elements happening right now. Like, they sort of started, they like COD and Fortnite were doing a lot of that stuff live, but it was all very much, a lot of it was kind of announced. You knew it was coming and the big event was going to happen at this time on this day, or there's like a big countdown clock to stuff. And I get that. That's like part of hyping things and making sure you get maximum exposure. But also to have things just happen in a game is like, that's pretty cool too. That then the word of mouth exposure goes crazy, right? Or you're just like, bro, the bugs, the flying guys are out now. Get online. We need your help.
That's what's cool is they first started off with just like rumors. Like we heard about, like, that's how they introduced the bugs, the flying ones. Is it was just like a rumor in the community. Like, did you guys hear about that? Did you because it was only available for like I'm sure the percentage of them spawning was like really, 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 really low.
Yeah.
And then I think they also did it for like mechs. There was like mechs that would show up sometimes and it's just so they.
And
just
some random guy that's recording gets a clip of it and it's just like, bro, look what I saw. Look at this. Is this a bug? What's happening? Oh my God.
Yeah. Super cool.
I want that to be like a job that you can get where you can be the guy who like gets the info and then like pretends to like leak it in as like a member. You're like, did you guys see this? This is crazy. This happened while I was playing.
That's crazy, man. I can't believe this happened right now.
I like it.
I'd like to think it was more organic than that, but
I do too, but I also like to think that there's like subversive elements in the community that are like given the information to create the hype.
It's possible.
I know. Just makes me smile to think. the devs have that available. So that's cool. So you've been playing a lot of Helldivers then, or did that?
I played it for one night. I was busy. Oh, I also played a game called Steel Hunters. You ever hear about that?
Is that the mecha game from Wargaming?
Yep.
I'm curious about it. I saw the trailer because didn't they announce it at Game Awards?
I think they showed it off at the Game Awards. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like? It looks like Mech Warrior, but Wargaming's version.
So it's basically a battle royale. It's a battle royale, but with mechs.
Okay.
It has extraction mechanics, kind of. So you spawn in. You've got one other buddy, which is another mech, and the mechs are really cool. You've got ones that look like a dog. There's a bear. There's snipers. Like really cool.
It's like
designs.
Beast Wars, the video game.
A little bit. Like you're literally lumbering along as like this wolf, and
they do look cool. I saw the trailer and I was like, it's cheesy, but it's cool, man.
It's really cool. So I really like the design. But you spawn in, and your job is to, either be the last team standing or to extract at a thing that spawns near the end of the game. And if you're in the circle when it's over, you win. Your team wins.
Is there a narrative to why you're animal robots? You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because the trailer looked cool, and I was like, can't wait to figure out what all this means. And then it's like, is there a reason? Nah.
There might be a justification.
Yeah.
What makes it a little bit unique is that you are going to fight drones. They're all like kind of the same looking, which is a little disappointing. But there's drones around the map with different rarities, and when you destroy them, they will have loot inside of them, and you can get things that it's really basic loot where you pick up like a little circle or a triangle, and the triangle increases your damage, and the circle increases like your structural hull, like basically your HP, and you have different rarities of those depending on the drone's rarity, and it will make you stronger. So you want to take those out so that you get stronger yourself. You level up as well, so you unlock more abilities, which there's only like 2 per class, which isn't a lot. I was kind of hoping there'd be more than that. And then it just turns into a battle royale where you're trying to fight other players who are also going after these resources to come out and win. So that's kind of the whole gameplay loop.
Okay. I mean, I'm a fan of Wargaming's other stuff. Like, I think they've done very good with their other free titles, other than the fact that they're heavily monetized, which I assume this one is as well, or it's going to be at some point. Did Wargaming also do oh man, it's that game where you get to build your own Mad Max style car and then like kill other people. Know. I forgot what it's called, but I love that game. I think it's like one of the coolest games ever, and it's just heavily monetized is the only downside to it. Like, this is such a brilliant game. You just got to pay quite a bit of money if you want all the best parts to build your car with.
I enjoyed it. Full disclosure, though, I should mention, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I did do a sponsored like 2 hours for it. I played for 6 hours total because I was enjoying it, but I just need to be transparent. So I did get sponsored. What I liked about it, and what they were clearly going for, is that you need to rely on your teammate and you need to have tactics. It's not a Twitch shooter, right? You are essentially, everyone's a tank. Yeah. Everyone's got a lot of health. So it's more of a slow, methodical kind of, you're going to be taking your shots, you're ducking behind cover, hopefully maybe baiting especially if you're low on health, it might bait them in. And then the guy that your teammates who's on the other rock, maybe adjacent to you, now all of a sudden has a line of sight, lights up that guy, they start running away, then you round the corner, then you light them up, right? So it's like an ambush,
Yeah.
So those moments are really fun when you're able to pull it off with a rando. And with their different abilities, it can really spice up those moments too. So all in all, I walked away content. I don't know what the longevity is going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be something that will be able to last, because it is only 2 abilities per these mechs, and it's essentially a battle royale. But it could work.
You can do stuff with slow moving combat games like that are really fun. That's when you start working in like armor penetration angles and timing abilities really well, where you're like, I'm going to hit this to put out my fires, but I can only use it once every 30 seconds.
It's not that slow.
Okay.
It's still pretty arcadey, and the enemy does have weak spots. So if you aim down sight, there'll be like big parts on their mech that will glow, and you'll deal more damage, but you're not like hindering their legs or something, where they're now going to start limping. It is very arcadey.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for World of Warships. That game is like so slow in terms of like how quickly you move. But I still remember when like winning 1v3s, as like a battleship versus 3 other battleships. And it's like, I remember those because it's so hard to do that, like to actually win a 1v3.
To pull it off.
In like all at the same time, right? It's not like 1v1ing 3 times in a row. It's like, no, 1 versus 3 other ships to win that is so dang difficult. And so it's like, I still remember like the mechanics of that fight and how I like won those ones. So if a slow moving mech game like that could integrate any of that stuff in there, where it's like, you really got to outthink them, you really got to time your abilities just right. And since this is 2v2 type thing, synergies, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't played the game yet, but my brain is like thinking about all the cool things you could do with it.
It's in beta. I don't know how long the beta will be for, but I think it's worth trying. It's going to be free. So when it comes out, the only thing you're wasting is your time, which, let's be real, is the most valuable thing we have. But won't at least cause you, any monetary pain.
Yep. Speaking of no monetary pain, at least in the future, have you been watching the player numbers on Path of Exile 2? This game.
Oh yeah, it's actually like growing slowly.
Not only is it growing, but like, we only have Steam chart data, and people are saying that most of the players are not even using the Steam for it because it's got its own client, and I think a lot of people use that to launch the game.
I don't know how many people use that, but maybe.
I don't know. I think it's a big portion of players that use it because I think that's how they were indoctrinated with Path of Exile 1. So a lot of Path of Exile 1 players use the client, and they probably just grandfathered into using it for Path of Exile 2. But apparently their numbers, because it's on consoles, I believe also, are just crazy, just like cray banana. I think the game is doing insanely well. I've had more time to get further into it, and played a bunch more. It's still fantastic. I'm finding the little cracks and things here and there that I'm like, this could be better. I'm not loving this thing or that. I totally.
You get to Act 2?
Yeah, I'm in Act 3 now.
You're in Act 3, okay.
Act 3 is a slog. Are you in Act 3?
I am technically in Act 3 now on one of my characters, yeah. I just got to it though. Like literally, I beat the boss and then I'm like, all right, it's time to quit for the night.
Yeah. Well, admittedly, I'm not somebody who played a lot of the original game, so it's hard for me to know exactly the comparisons, but Path of Exile 2 is, I said before, it's like Diablo 2. Now that I've played it more, it's like exactly Diablo 2 in the sense of the environment of each act as you progress, because Diablo 2 also has 4 acts, and then the expansion adds a 5th act to the game. Act 1 is basically the same environment as Act 1 in this game. You sort of have this like little outpost, and then you end in this massive cathedral mausoleum type crazy place, and then you go deep down and fight an evil boss at the end. Exact same setup, the visuals, the styling, everything feels the same. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like a little throwback to Diablo 2, which is why I mentioned it, because I had just gotten into Act 2. I think last podcast we had talked about it a little bit. Act 2 is a desert, just like Diablo 2's desert. And there's like musical scores in it. I swear they copied the exact same instruments over, because they're very easy to recognize, like twangy string instruments that they play for the score. It's like exactly the same. The visuals of the like architectural, they have the same kind of arches that have the same design on them. Like it's just such a throwback. The narrative of the whole game, I just realized, is very similar to Diablo 2's narrative, where you're kind of chasing.
What did you think about the narrative in Act 2? Because I thought Act 1's narrative was really good, and I liked the atmosphere. And then Act 2, I felt like it kind of fell off. I wasn't really following what was going on as well, and I didn't think it was as interesting.
Yeah, I think it's kind of setting up. I think Act 2 is setting up for Act 3. And what's funny about that is the narrative in Act 2 for Diablo 2 also sucks, where you're sort of expecting a big payoff.
They're just following the guideline, right?
Yeah, you're sort of expecting a bigger payoff at the end of it, and then it feels like a cliffhanger for just more stuff, which is what it is. And then Act 3 in Path of Exile 2 is jungle. You're in this sort of Aztec Mayan type environment. Exact same thing as Diablo 2, by the way. This one is like even more on the nose because Diablo 2 is literally Aztec style pyramids in the jungle. Exactly.
So what's going to happen when they add in the other 3 acts?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm curious because I mean, the Act 4 in Diablo 2 is you go to hell essentially. So I don't know if that's what you're going to do in Path of Exile, but
maybe.
Yeah. And Act 3 in Diablo 2 is a slog. Like it is just trudging through the jungle endlessly on these massive maps that are super confusing. Same thing in Path of Exile 2. In fact, I would say Act 3 is like the size of the maps and the complexity of them and the confusion of them. It feels like somebody just typed in like 2 or 3x into their little code. We're like, that's how much bigger and crazier the maps are going to be. I mean, I think
I hear that's one of the complaints that people have had is that the maps are a little too big and trying to find exactly where you need to go is kind of frustrating.
I wasn't frustrated in Act 1 or Act 2, but Act 3, I'm like, okay, what is going on here?
Where do I need to be right now?
Yeah, I spent a good 30, 40 minutes exploring a single map, trying to find where I needed to go. And
yeah, that's stupid.
And then you hit the map button, you can't see the whole map. You have to then use your arrow keys and like track around. You're like, oh, I didn't explore that one thing. Way the F over there, and I'm playing a character that has no movement skills to speed up their movement. Yeah. Sick. I'm just gonna like run that way. Also, what's up with the boots? None of the boots spawn with faster movement properties. I've seen
you can put affixes on them to roll for it potentially.
Yeah, I guess, but I think I've seen one set of boots that I could wear the whole time.
When I come across one, I usually will like save it and put like, I'll buff it up. That's what I did with mine. I got like 15% movement speed and I'm like, I'm low level. I know this can get higher, but I'm just going to make this into a yellow and I'll just use it forever.
Yeah, no, I've got some of my low level gear on there too. Cause, when you're playing a mage, like you don't need the base stats quite as much for some stuff. And so it's just about what the modifiers are. So if the low level modifiers are incredible, you're just like, I guess I'm using this forever now.
Yep.
This is my weapon. Yeah. So I'm still loving the game. Visually, it's incredible. Like it's just visually, it's such a treat. Deep into it. I think this now that I'm much further down the skill tree, the punishment for respecking is like absurd. So I understand that too.
I'm hoping that they reevaluate the respecking because I feel like that game would be so like you want to make sure that people aren't just respecking every 2 seconds. And I think that there should be some punishment, but at the same time, I don't want to have to re-roll a character because you nerfed a build or whatever. And now I'm stuck with a build that sucks and I don't have the money to respec into something different because you just slashed it to to pieces.
They definitely need because Diablo 2 would give you a full respec. You'd get like a respec ability basically when you completed like a campaign. And so is your light flickering? You're all right, Matt?
Yeah, the aliens are coming.
All right, get your tinfoil hat on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could respec in Diablo 2 like once per campaign completion or something like that. So you couldn't do it a lot. It was every once in a while. So you could do it like 3 times or something like that. And then after that, I think you were locked in, or you could do it again, but you had to find all these items and like craft a special respec potion. That was like a DLC feature or something. And it took a while to do it. So it was just like this thing that was kind of like a pain in the butt to do, but you got to do it a couple of times for free. So it was sort of letting you dial in your character more. And while I don't think that was the greatest solution ever, it was more lenient. Like Path of Exile 2 is like, it just costs you all your gold if you want to do it.
I mean, there's some people that basically admitted that they've bricked their character because they don't have the money to respec.
Yeah.
And now their character is useless. I'm like, that shouldn't be a thing. That just shouldn't be a thing. Your character is now useless. Like, what do you mean? It's a video game. Like, come on now.
Yeah. Like, it should be like, if you want to switch out a couple of skills, sure, that costs a little bit of money, but then there should be an option to just like tabula rasa your whole skill tree. And that should be like, I don't know, 10 grand or whatever. You know, you come up with a price, but don't make it like insanely expensive. Just make it enough so that people will consider the price of it without just doing it willy-nilly. Yeah. So there's some issues with it for sure. It's early access. They got time to fix it. And I was watching videos of the original Path of Exile where they're doing comparisons of the pacing of the OG Path of Exile versus 2, and 2's much slower. And the first one is just like lightning fast, where they're just
where you can't even see. It's like I said, it's glorified cookie clicker.
Yeah, and I don't like those. So I am a fan that this one, I think that, I don't know what it's like for your characters, but it feels like they have intentionally removed some of the movement mechanics that would speed up other games.
There's like no movement mechanics.
Okay. Yeah, because like mages in, say, Diablo 2, you could eventually get teleport, and then you could just do this insane teleport build and just like zip around the map like crazy and just nuke everything, and that became kind of this end game insanity build. And
there's one video I saw for Path of Exile where a monk basically just starts like ping-ponging off everything. Yeah. And it's absolutely madness. But other than that, everything is they're clearly going for a slower design, but their end game also has problems right now where it's like, oh, it's supposed to be like slow methodical, yet you just throw enemies at me. So it's like, I don't know if it's it's early access for a reason. They're going to fine tune this. They're going to get their end game hopefully dialed in the next couple of months.
Yeah. But I'm loving it, man. I can't stop playing it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's my little carpal tunnel simulator, you know?
Yep.
It's back.
I like it a lot.
The difference is, Matt, is I've got my vertical mouse now, right?
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Now I'm not getting my carpal tunnel as much, you know?
That's good.
Yep. That's a
very good
pro tip for any action RPG fans out there. Get rid of your gaming mouse. Go get yourself a nice little vertical mouse.
Ergonomic.
And don't kill your hand.
That way your hand's just like this instead of this.
Yep. And I could play for hours now, baby.
Woo!
I see that you picked up the new Indiana Jones.
I did. I would actually say that is one of the best games that came out this year.
Game of the year.
It is for some people their game of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what makes it so good? I mean, like I've seen the graphics; they look incredible.
Yeah, the graphics are great. It is just a really fun game. It's got scuff. I would actually argue that the combat and the stealth is probably one of the weakest aspects of it. You will quite literally like run in front of people and they will just be like, huh?
Yeah, I saw clips of the stealth being stupid and people just running around killing everything in dumb ways.
Or you'll just like walk up behind a guy, smack him in the back of the head, and the dude that's like not like right next to you, but like pretty close, that should hear like a dude falling to the ground after you smack him. They don't notice you, or you like swing on with your whip and they're like right below you and you basically like could kick them with your, your feet and they don't see you, stuff like that. But it is such a charming game. It's fun to live in the world. It's three open world areas where it's just like,
is it covering like the movies? Like, is there a Temple of Doom section?
It starts off with straight up, it's a 1-for-1 of the movie, right? And then it opens up, and then it is charting new ground. I believe it's been a long time.
Okay, well, there's 3 movies. Seen every movie. So I'm just wondering if you say the movie, I assume you mean Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then
yes,
okay,
yeah, the iconic, him grabbing the idol, and then the stone coming down, right? Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I was wondering if it like progressed to the Temple of Doom, where you go to like a part of India, I think, and then you find magic stones and stuff. No.
Well, you find magic stones here too.
Oh, you do.
But yeah,
I don't
want to get into spoilers.
So nobody like rips your heart out of your chest while it's still beating, and like then it catches on fire type thing.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nothing like that.
You should go back, watch those movies, Matt. They're
I
solid.
really should. It's been forever. Holy
They're
hell. I don't remember.
fantastic. They hold up.
They're fun.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I walked away from Indiana Jones is that it's just a fun game. The voice acting and the acting from not only Troy Baker, who plays Indy, he does a great Harrison Ford impersonation, but there's this character called Voss. He's horrible, fascist, he's awful, but he does the dumbest, but also just the wildest things. And you're just in for the ride. And he steals the show anytime he's on the scene.
Yeah.
Right. He just steals it. And it's so goofy, but also it fits the world of Indiana Jones at the same time. And they just nail that aesthetic and that vibe. And so even though a goofy thing will happen, like a character does like a random like attack, like tiger claw, like nonsense, or you have like this random ass fight. I don't want to spoil it because like there's some fight scenes in this and like there's some action sequences that are just insane, but because it's Indiana Jones, it's just like it works, right?
Yeah.
So I really like the vibe and the atmosphere that they went with. The characters are really fun. Like I said, the voice acting is fantastic. The real meats of it is exploring and the puzzles of the world and everything that you come across.
Yeah.
Because as I said, the actual combat's kind of mid.
That's unfortunate.
And bad in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be all right.
Do you think it would have been better if it was third person?
Not necessarily. No.
Okay.
I actually kind of like that it was first person because it makes it very immersive.
Yeah.
So I did like the first person aspect because it is kind of like an Indiana Jones simulator in that regard, where you're Indy and it feels like Indy.
It's cool, man.
I liked it a lot.
I want to watch those movies now. I want to watch them with my son. I think he's still a little young to see Nazis' faces melt off, but one day. That's how the movie. That's how Raiders of the Lost Ark ends. They're like all their faces melt off and their eyeballs come out of their head, and I'm like, maybe he's a little young for that. And then she'd be like, Dad, what's a Nazi? And be like, oh boy, here we go.
Oh
all right.
Boy, so a long time ago.
Well, that's cool, man. I'm glad that the game is good and that there just seems to be more movie franchise games that are doing better these days. It's like they figured it out to not just make crappy
movies. If you
movies.
told me that I was going to love Indiana Jones as much as I did a year ago when we first, I would have been like, hell no, right? Like there's no way. My initial hype for that game was not, I had very little enthusiasm.
Nor should you, because there's been such a long history of these like big IP films turned into games that just suck because it's just some studio that's like, I don't know, throw $50 million at this company over here to make a game and nobody oversight them or nobody with good game knowledge head the project. And then you just get all these crap games coming out. Like that cool King Kong game that came out for PlayStation, right? That was a pretty sick one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they clearly had passion behind it, and it was the same devs, I believe, that made the Wolfenstein franchise. So little bit of a deviation, still within their wheelhouse of punching Nazis and stuff. But it was
less mecha Nazis, more more supernatural, old fashioned Nazis. Yeah.
I would, especially considering it's on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, I 100% will at least give it a try just to see if it's up your alley, because it won't be for everyone. Like I said, combat's a little rough, but just a really fun puzzle exploration, just vibe.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. Well, it's the time in the podcast now, Matt, where you get to talk about your favorite subject. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Star Citizen, baby.
Yeah, baby. I was like, are we talking about F1 again already?
No, the season's over, man. Season's over. And you're like,
no,
it's
over.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay.
You got like 3-ish months of freedom, Matt. And then it's coming back with a vengeance.
With a vengeance.
So
hit me with the Star Citizen news.
So it's interesting because they've been promising Pyro for decades at this point. Not really decades, but a long time. Yeah. It's always been like Pyro's next year, Pyro being the second system in Star Citizen. Players have been waiting for it. It's gated by their server meshing technology. So they've been working on the server meshing technology. And they basically promised that it's coming out this year. Like it has to come out this year or it's it's just too long. You can only promise it comes out this year. I guess like 4 times in a row at this point.
So many times.
Yeah. Before people are just like, what's even happening? They've been testing it like crazy for the past month, and it is not stable. It works sometimes, and so like people can get in there and play Pyro, but there's just every bug you can possibly imagine: elevators killing you, random desyncing stuff, invisible players, missions breaking, every possible fun Star Citizen bug you can think of is alive and well, and people are basically expecting them to launch it before the end of the year. We're halfway through December, so they're going to go on holiday vacation, the devs are, and I think they're just going to push it out and be like, see you next year, and then everybody on live is going to be like, well, this is a nightmare. I mean, technically Pyro's there, but the servers are all like crashing and exploding constantly, so this is great.
Yeah.
There's kind of been a lot of talk in the community, which is like, just don't put it out. Like, at this point, we would rather have a live client that is stable-ish and playable-ish versus completely unstable and completely...
Because it's not like having it live is going to add that much more value to their dev team. Like, it might give them some like clue, but if it's that bad, like, you just got to make it stable.
Yeah, and the argument is like, you're just going to hurt the player base and the image of your game more by pushing it out than the headlines of saying that you missed yet another deadline, right?
And you're just going to probably slow down development too, because then you have a live build that you have to now maintain and try to make it work.
Yeah, and probably slow down. I mean, it's hard to know, right? Like, you'll get more data from the live build because you'll have more people playing, and then they'll go, oh, look, this is where our servers are really bottlenecking and crashing. Now we can fix it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so they'll get more data, but also you'll get less players on your live build, and you'll disinterest your player base, and that's the player base who's buying ships and funding the game. And so, yeah, it's not a tightrope that I want to walk,
But you also don't have $800 million, so...
Yeah, I don't know if they're at 800 yet, but they're getting there.
Okay, well, close.
Yeah, no, I know. It's insanity. So I wish them the best, but I think they're going to push it live, and I think it's going to suck. And it sucks because we've been waiting on this content drop, which is a significant amount of content in terms of new areas to explore and missions and all that kind of stuff. And secret areas and like weird little arena spots where you have like puzzles and blah, blah, blah. And getting that new content with the most buggy, unstable version of the game is just like a huge letdown, because you're like, I want to experience it, enjoy it. And if I don't do it now, somebody else is going to do it and then make a video of it, and then I'll check it out there, and I won't be...
the life of a content creator.
Yeah, well, it's not so much... I'm not saying it even as a content creator. I'm saying it as like a consumer, right? Because I'm going to see a billion threads or videos and whatever talking about the new thing that I didn't want to experience potentially because it was so buggy. That's why every time I try and get back into the game right now, I'm just met with like a wealth of bugs, and then I last about 40 minutes to an hour, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to try and record the thing today because I don't have this much time to waste on it. Yeah. So I'm a little worried about that, but that's kind of where the game is. We'll see what happens, man. I just really want this server meshing to work because it is everything's.
It'll change the game. It'll change gaming forever if they can make it work, but.
The longer it takes for them to get the game to a stable spot with it, the more doubtful I become that it's going to become a thing eventually. Like, obviously, all the devs have to say this is totally possible and it's for sure going to happen. But as a consumer, when you're like, they've been trying to crack this nut for years now, and the best they got is this? Like, this is concerning. All right.
Yep.
So hopefully they get there, man. But I got a feeling the player base is in for another year of trial and error, you know?
So did you say the single player comes out in 2026, right?
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, allegedly. Okay.
According to the guy who runs the company, so allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. I'm more excited for single player now, though, because it seems like the thing that could actually happen where multiplayer is like, I'll believe it when I see it, guys. I'll believe it when I see it.
Is the single player going to be more open-ended, or is it like really kind of like, because it's obviously you're in space, but is it going to be a linear space adventure, or is it going to be you kind of pick and choose? Have they disclosed that information?
I think it's going to be primarily linear, but like say in between missions when you're on your main ship, you might be able to go around and talk to different characters and potentially engage in some optional side content, but I'm not 100% on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like an RPG.
Yeah, it's probably like Indiana Jones where you're like, go kill the bad guy Nazi.
Right. I mean, there wasn't any quest that was around that, but yeah.
There's no go kill a bad guy Nazi?
No, it's literally almost all the quests are find someone who's lost in a somewhere,
right,
which puts you into a temple, or go and discover like a temple, right? And then discover what's inside of there.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I guess in the movies he was never he wasn't like a mercenary.
He wasn't like a hitman. He's an archaeologist.
Yeah, they're like go get this before the Nazis get it, and then inevitably he ends up fighting Nazis on horseback against tanks for some reason.
Right.
Which he did pretty well, I gotta say.
I mean,
horse versus tank. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Such a good action sequence, man. Those movies had like premium action sequences because it was all practical effects when you're watching it. You're like, yeah, they had to get a tank. They had to get an actual World War I era tank running and then do all the stunts and stuff on it. You're like, yeah, it's cool.
It's pretty dope.
You watch it now and they've got like a 360-degree camera with a helicopter, blah, blah, blah. It's all green screen. You're like, you're not on a tank. Some guy's standing there with a fan and another guy's throwing dirt into the fan to make it look like you're in the desert or something. In fact, they probably didn't even do that. They just added it in CGI. Post. Yeah, what am I saying? They don't even practical effects that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Fan at most. Even then, you're probably wearing one of those black leotards and then they just CGI in your hair blowing in the wind later, right?
I could use one of those.
Matt, you should become like an E-tuber, right? A VTuber, what are they called?
Or an E-tuber, yeah. Let's go E-tuber.
The new era, that's where you CGI in your own hair.
There you go.
But it's still your real face. I like it.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's a great idea. That would look really good.
Have you seen that's what they're doing now. They're using like kind of AI with CGI stuff where they can in real time add stuff to you that looks incredible. They can change things.
I believe it.
It's like a Snapchat filter, but like on steroids, basically. It's like Snapchat filter, but what if you could talk to the filter and then tell it to do different stuff? It's pretty wild.
I mean, like 5 years ago, I saw this video that blew my mind where a woman went up to a stand at a convention and it was like you press a button and then it would show what your hair looked like with different colors. It was like, oh, wow. And it looked fantastic. Like it was like really natural, right? It looked like that was her natural hair, but with blue or yellow or whatever, blonde. And we are so far beyond that now.
You're like, whoa, we can visualize what our hair would look like dyed a different color. It's wild.
Yeah.
What color did you get for you, Matt? Was it you go pink
or
purple? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I've never actually downloaded Snapchat, so I've never used one of those filters before.
They're funny. I do them with my kids every now and then. They like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually don't even know how to use the app. I just know how to turn it on so that I can see what we look like, and then we all just laugh.
Nice.
I'm like, do you message people on this too? I don't understand it. Is Snapchat still a thing?
I think that's what they say. Send me your gram. What's your gram?
Yeah. It's all about TikTok nowadays, Matt. Come on.
Is that where everyone messages each other these days? I have no idea.
I don't know. You don't stream
I don't have
on
a TikTok.
No.
I don't have a TikTok. I don't have an Instagram. I don't have a Snapchat. I am apparently ancient.
Yeah. Do you
not cool?
Do you send out letters to when you're going to stream to your?
Yes. Yeah.
You're like licking them, and you're like, let me put this in the mail, and yeah. Cool.
I've actually got one of those moisten devices. So I just roll that, or
it's true. That's a lot of letters. So that'll save your tongue.
Yeah.
The good old days, Matt. Good old days. Well, I think we've talked about most stuff. There's just a billion game trailers that we could yammer on about forever. But if you guys want to watch them, check them out. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's
There was a lot of announcements at the Game Awards.
insane. How much do you think they make? They probably make a lot on those trailers.
I would assume so. He does it every year, and I don't know what else he does for a living.
Yeah, I know. He's like, I'm Jeff Keighley, and I do.
He's just been a part of the game industry, and he just
You
somehow.
know me. I'm Jeff Keighley.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't meet him, but I was at when Apex Legends first got announced.
Am I saying his name right, by the way?
Jeff. Keighley.
Jeff Keighley. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure I got it right.
He was in the back, and I looked behind me, and I was like, "Oh, it's Jeff."
Yeah.
He was just in the back of like this little arena. No, it wasn't even an arena. It was just basically this room.
What event was that?
It was for Apex before Apex was announced. They flew out a bunch of like content creators to play it and then be a part of the reveal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't talk about it, but he was there because I guess he's everywhere. He's just, if it's a big gaming thing, he's there.
Yeah. It's cool meeting some of those figureheads sometimes when you're just like, I remember seeing like Cliff Bleszinski when I was at this Lawbreakers event. I was like, oh my God, it's Cliff. It's the guy that says all the dumb stuff on Twitter. My favorite guy.
My favorite.
My favorite. Yeah, those events were fun. I'm not going to deny that I don't mind not going to as many of them these days. COVID really put the kibosh on a lot of that stuff, and they haven't really restarted that too much, but
they might come back.
I did get invited to a thing, and I think you probably got invited to a similar thing, and I think most people turned it down from what I heard, and I was like, oh, interesting. They're not even doing it anymore because everybody turned them down. But yeah interesting days. Well, I think that wraps it up for the old Pod-a-Rooney. If you guys want to support our podcast more, check us out on Patreon. We record this live, and then we have a little post show for the live Patreon members. Check us out there. Otherwise, do the usual, like, subscribe. I think there's a bell thing that does something or other. I don't know. Matt knows about the bell. And otherwise, we're going to leave you with some very helpful advice that Matt has thought about before we started the podcast.
Yeah, so you told me to go look up stuff online, and so I looked up stuff online, and my advice is be honest with yourself and to others. You're welcome. See, it's so lame. Like, there's all these like platitudes, and it's just like, you should be kind to yourself. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. Everyone knows that.
Are you honest with yourself, Matt?
No, not at all.
So this is more of a do what I say, not what I do type situation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Or in some ways, I'm a little bit too honest with myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I spent most of my life not being too honest with myself. And then I was honest with myself. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me for sure. That's a me thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm just more cavalier about my failings as a person.
That's a nice word.
Yeah, it is a good word. I need some more words,
Could do one of those word a day things.
Yeah, I need to catch up, man. I went to Oakland Public School, and I was like 2 grades behind on reading for like the longest time. Yeah.
That sounds like me too.
Yeah. Took a while to get there, and I'm still not quite there. Yeah. Some of those I have to read kids' books now when like putting my kids to sleep, and sometimes I'm like, what does that say?
What is that word?
Oh, I missed the comma there. It means something entirely different. Hang on. Let me get back to this. And they're like, oh, this is level 2 reading. I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. Good.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. And I'm proud of our viewers as well for sticking through this podcast today. We will be back next week. Thank you guys all for dropping by, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Take care.